Everybody, welcome to Women and Alcohol Live. I'm Nancy McKay, your host, and today I'm welcoming my very special guest, Julie Lattimer. Julie and I were in coach training together, and it is so exciting for me to have her join me here, and you're going to love her just as much as I do. So Julie, like I said, is a life coach, and she helps people affected by someone else's alcoholism or addiction. That someone else may be parents, children, siblings, a partner, coworkers, or friends. The alcoholism or addiction may be present now or in the past. Julie's a certified life coach, a graduate of the School for the Work of Byron Katie, and a 23-year member of a support group for those affected by alcohol and addiction. So as I said, Julie and I met during our Wayfinder Life Coach training through Martha Beck in 2018, and we became fast friends. And we are collaborating on a new project, so stay tuned for that. We're so excited. So as always, we will be having an adult conversation. And if you know me, with a very high probability of adult language. So if you have children in the room, now's a really good time for earphones. And if you want to leave a comment for us, and if you want us to know who you are, you'll have to give StreamYard permission to access your name. And you can do that by going to streamyard.com/Facebook, and I've got that in the comments. So I hope that you'll do that so that we can see who's joining us and who has questions or comments. So let's get started. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, my darling. How are you?
I'm just wonderful. It's so wonderful to have you here and just to see you. Julie lives in Nebraska, so we don't get to see each other very often. So Julie, tell us more about your background and your experience in this and how you brought this into your coaching.
Well, I didn't have alcoholism in my family growing up, but I actually began drinking in about 8th grade. And I continued some pretty heavy socially drinking all the way through high school and college, my 20s, my early 30s. And so I think that's important because I absolutely understand the compulsion to drink. I'll never forget the first time I took a drink as an 8th grader, and my first thought was, oh, this is what it feels like to be popular. And so I was really drawn to it for quite a long time. I got to my early 30s and I woke up one morning and had a pretty solid hangover. And my son, who was about 2, and he was a very busy toddler, and he was hollering from his crib, mommy, mommy. And I was facing a day of taking care of this very busy child. And I went into the kitchen and threw up in the sink. And I kind of decided at that point that I needed to change my lifestyle. Now, I do want to say that I think of people who struggle with alcoholism and addiction as winners, because it does really cause us to become very strong people. But I will say that I was able to scale back, and almost today I rarely drink at all by myself. But I really want to say that I recommend that to anybody who is really struggling, because it's, as we say, it's not a me project, it's a we project. And so it really does require a lot of support. But I brought that up because I wanted to have people be aware that I know that feeling. Even though I kind of quit, there were several people around me that did not quit, and they continued to drink. And as you know, Nancy, since you're a life coach who helps people with addiction and alcoholism, it's a progressive disease, and
Yep.
so it doesn't get better; it gets more pronounced. And and so we call that hitting. You know, we hope that they will quit bottom or hit bottom. And even those of us who struggle with drinking, it's like, well, it's not bad enough. It's not, I'm still working. I'm still doing whatever. And so I kept waiting for them to hit bottom. How bad is it going to have to get?
Right.
And I realized that those who struggle with alcoholism and addiction have very bouncy bottoms. And so just when you think it's gotten as bad as it possibly can be, then we're able to talk ourselves out of it. We're able to have people talk us out of it. And then we're right back in that spiral again.
Yep.
And so what I didn't know at that time was that as someone who loved both present and past alcoholics, that I needed to hit bottom too. I thought it was all about them getting their shit together.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out was that I had to hit bottom and finally let go of the belief that I could fix this myself. I could change the dynamics. I could make things happen. And so I finally joined a support group that is for those affected by another person's drinking. And I'm going to use, I don't know how you feel, Nancy, but I'm going to use alcoholism and addiction kind of interchangeably because
Yep.
one's about drugs, one's about alcohol, but it's
Addiction
all,
is addiction.
okay. So I started going to those meetings, and I, honestly, I started going to the meetings because it was to learn how to get them to quit drinking. That's what it was all about. And once they got their act together, then we could go back to normal, and it would no longer be a problem.
Right.
But through that group, I really started learning about the disease of alcoholism. And for those people watching who have heard the word disease, it's easy to be cynical and say, yeah, whatever. If they, excuse me, if they had cancer, they wouldn't be doing this. If they had tuberculosis, they wouldn't be doing this. And I think what really helped me was when I started seeing it more as if I loved somebody who had Alzheimer's.
Yep.
That there's a certain amount of trying. It doesn't appear as though there's trying sometimes, but it's like this fog that is so powerful and so compelling, and we can have the best of intentions, and yet pretty soon we're right back going down that slippery, slidey hole again.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say the caveat that because of the tradition of anonymity with the support group that I've been a member of, that I'm not able to say its name online, but I'm more than happy to, and I know you are too, to talk privately to people later if anybody wants to.
Yeah.
So as I was in this group, I began sponsoring others, and I kind of realized over time that I really had developed the ability to listen and to hear and to be quiet and to ask kind of key questions that helped people sort through things a little bit more clearly and figure out exactly what it was that they wanted, what they needed, what they expected from the alcoholic. And so I really felt myself being drawn to working with others. And then in the meantime, I'd also become familiar with the work of our fearless leader, Martha Beck, who is a Harvard-trained PhD, and read all of her books. They were life-changing for me in all areas of my life, in addition to this. And her work so inspired me that I decided to go through the life coach training, and like you, ended up becoming certified. And that was I don't know about you, but that's an arduous process. It was very important to me to become certified because It requires us to go through quite a lot of testing, a lot of practice sessions where we are using the tools that we've been taught.
Yep.
Once I finished that process, one of the big tools that we learned there is called the work. And that is a fascinating process developed by a woman named Byron Katie. And it is, it gives us tools, it gives us a framework to actually become aware of our own thoughts.
Right.
I don't know about the rest of you all, but my head can be this spinning turmoil pretty constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so working with, so I went to the School for the Work, and I graduated from that school, and that really helped me to hone my skills in helping clients really succinctly frame a thought that is causing stress, that is causing a belief system that might not be valid for them any longer. And it's really been invaluable. I know you use it as well, Nance, and it's been really invaluable in helping people really look at what a thought is that is causing pain, and then how to process through that.
Yep.
And then the other thing that I did, I'd also become a follower of a gentleman named Eckhart Tolle. Some people may have heard of him, and he wrote books called The Power of Now and A New Earth. And so I attended one of his retreats, and that's become very helpful for me in my practice of presence, which some people will call mindfulness. It's actually mindlessness. You're
Exactly.
out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And helping me to be in the present, to not project into the future and dwell on the past.
Right.
So that's just a quick summary of kind of the path that got me to where I'm at today.
Well, that is, you have done so much, and what I think is so great about both of us is we've got these, and really it's with any life coach, but I think you and I are pretty special. So, we bring this rich life experience that, as we were going through it, we thought, it was hell on earth, right? I mean, you wouldn't wish any of that on your worst enemy. And yet, what it did was it gave us the desire
Mm-hmm.
and the, I think, the gumption to be able to pull from that in order to help other people, right?
That's so true. So true. And the other thing I think that both of us share is you mentioned life experience, and I think that's really important. Both of us have gone through cancer. I have stepchildren, I have children, I have grandchildren, I've been married, I've, done divorce. And I'm not suggesting that a therapist or a coach, and wait, let me rephrase that, because we're not therapists and we need to quantify that. But I do think it's really helpful when you work with somebody who's walked the walk and knows how painful an experience can be, and who also knows how joyous an experience can be.
Right.
So I think that our life experience really does provide a unique combination of skills and experiences that we can offer our clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I don't think that you have to, like you said, I don't think you have to go through that stuff in order to be an effective coach.
Mm-mm.
But it certainly brings a little bit more to the table. I think it adds,
Mm-hmm.
It just adds a little street cred, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some of the examples of how coaching can help someone who is affected by alcoholism or addiction, as far as, what do we look at?
Well, I think it's important to notice that the nature of alcoholism is, we often tend to focus on the person who's struggling with alcohol or drugs.
Mhm.
And it's always about they need to quit, they need to get their act together, they need to quit hurting the people around them. And what I think is really important is that, and don't get me wrong, a lot of times that's true. Um, but what a lot of folks don't realize, and I certainly didn't, was that um, we can be learning and doing things to feel better ourselves. And while we certainly can provide support um, and and love and tough love sometimes, but but we can be doing what we need to do for ourselves. And that combination of those tools and the focus on ourselves amazingly helps us to feel better, which, to be perfectly honest, I don't know about you, but at the end of the day, I need to feel better. I need to not hurt. I need to have some peace and serenity in my day.
Yeah.
I can tell you, as someone who's kind of on the other side of it, I have peace and serenity almost every day. It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And so, for someone who is affected by alcoholism, to know that it is possible to not to have an alcoholic who might still be drinking, or an addict who is still using, and I can still be at peace. I can still be serene. That to me is the definition of hope. And I know you and I have talked about that. I changed my definition of hope. I realized that my definition of hope was based on my expecting something would happen in the way I thought it would happen. And if it wasn't going to happen that way, then I couldn't have hope. And when I changed it, and now my definition is things will change in a way I can't possibly imagine. And when I let go of thinking I had to figure out how and what and when and where, and just said, I know things are going to change. I just don't know how.
Right.
There's like this release in that. I don't know how you feel
Oh,
about that.
absolutely. Absolutely. I know good things are coming, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what form they're coming in, but that's just the way I choose to believe. And I think that is hope and faith, just having, just knowing
Mm-hmm.
that.
But I'm sure you'll agree with me. There were many, many years where I did not know that.
No,
I absolutely, there's like, you have no clue what I'm going through. You have no clue what they're going through. And how could you possibly even tell me that things are going to get better? Because right now it feels so dark.
right.
And I think that's one of the really important things you and I can do is we can, when you're in that, whether you want to call it a jail, it feels like a tunnel that you're in, it might feel like a deep hole. We can offer just this hand that kind of comes down and says, I have some tools, I have some ideas, I want to listen to you, I want to hear where you're at, and then let's partner on this together.
Right.
I and gee, what a surprise when you start approaching life like that, and you're not, like, I don't know about you, but I'm not hammering at the alcoholic anymore all the time, and I'm not doing guilt trips, and I'm not doing shame, and I'm not wringing my hands. Oftentimes the alcoholism gets better because we don't have to they don't have to numb themselves all the time just to get me to shut up.
Right.
So, so I kind of look at it. As a periscope. So, if you're the captain of a submarine and you've got this periscope, and all you can see is what's through that hole,
Yep.
and you're constantly looking at somebody else, somebody else, somebody else.
Yep.
And if you turn that periscope toward you, and we start looking at ourselves and at our belief systems and our feelings of helplessness, our feelings of you know, you and I have talked about this, Nance, where a lot of times when we are so afraid, which often we don't want to feel, and so we feel angry because that feels safer.
Mm-hmm.
So when we feel angry or we feel afraid, then we feel out of control. And so what do? As people who are affected by alcoholism and addiction? We try and control more.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, have you paid your rent? Have you gone to the grocery store? How come you're not going to your job? Why aren't you getting your college degree? Da 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 da.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that it's not appropriate to have levels of behavior that are appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But I often, and you and I have talked about this too, oftentimes we can tell somebody who has been affected by alcoholism and addiction, whether it's through parents, grandparents, siblings, spouse, mate, children, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a high need for control.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you won't even be in that alcoholic situation, but you'll be talking with somebody or listening to somebody and you'll think, you know, I'm kind of feeling like there might be some addictive behavior somewhere in this family.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising because when we feel out of control, we want to. That's not a fun feeling. It's just not fun.
Oh God, no.
No. So I read. So anyway, what I think is so important is that idea. It's like a light bulb going on. Like, wow! In addition to getting appropriate help for the alcoholic, if that makes sense, I can be where I need to be working on myself. I need to be working on myself. I read a really great saying today. It said, I realized who was hurting when I blamed my past instead of correcting my present. And I thought that's so helpful, not just with if you're a child of an alcoholic or if you had a marriage that was alcoholic, but if we're always focusing on the past behavior as opposed to what do I need to be doing right now.
Exactly.
That feels good to me.
Right. And you know, getting back to the control thing, we are the only ones that we can control. You know, we can't take care of anybody else. We can't control someone else's behavior.
Mm-mm. But boy, the illusion of control is really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, right. You know,
it's like we can.
You know, right?
Right.
And it doesn't work, and it makes everybody miserable. So when we look at ourselves in the mirror and look at what we're doing to make the situation worse, then
yes.
and then we can figure out how to not do that anymore. But it all starts with our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and our thoughts create feelings, and that's where our actions come from, is because if we're pissed off or hurt or devastated, then that's going to affect what we do or don't do.
Right.
And that's, you know, chances are that's going to make the situation a whole lot worse. You know, throw gasoline on the fire kind of thing.
And you brought up a really good point when you talked about it affects our actions. One of the other things that I did several years ago was I realized that I did not have a definition of the word trust that was authentic to me. And I realized that my definition of trust is that they are going to act in a way that I expect them to. And that's not true. And so I redefined trust for me, and it is, do their intentions match their words, match their actions? And sometimes we can't get into other people's heads, and so we don't necessarily know what their intentions are.
Right.
But one of the things I work with my clients is if they feel if they feel comfortable asking the alcoholic or the addict, what are your intentions in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And they may lie, they may not, they may not even know. Half the time I roll out of bed, I don't even know what my day intentions are for the day. But at least it is, but that the actions and the words are a deal breaker. That is where, would you agree with
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
They kind of have to match. And so if they don't match pretty consistently, then that's kind of where it's the tools that we learn about um, boundaries, we learn about codependent behavior. Am I doing something for someone else that they can do for themselves? We learn about the illusion of control, as you mentioned. My thing is, or what I heard a long time ago was, if I stand and stretch my arms out in a circle and I turn around, that is my locus of control. Anything outside of that is not mine.
Right.
So anyway, cool stuff.
It is cool stuff. It is such cool stuff. So, how do you work with your clients? What's the process look like?
Um, well, I think you do this too. I usually do like a 20 to 30-minute discovery call, and we talk about what the situation is. And sometimes it's multifaceted. Sometimes it involves more than one person. And so we talk about different things, and then I'm pretty specific about whether I think I can be of assistance to somebody or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you and I do a lot of body work tools together,
Yep.
and I need to memorize this statistic, but I don't know how many more pieces of information the body actually gathers and processes than the brain.
Yeah.
It's like millions more.
Right.
So we always think that our brains are doing all the work. It's actually our bodies that are doing the heavy lifting.
Yep. Exactly.
And so when I'm doing that discovery call, I'll be taking notes. I'll be active listening, super active listening, asking questions, and then I can kind of feel something rise in my body that will. And Martha talks about this. Martha Beck. If you imagine shackles around your wrists, does it feel shackles on, or does it feel shackles off? And so usually at the end of the discovery call, I can tell somebody if I think I can be of assistance.
Yeah.
And so then we'll discover our first, or excuse me, we'll schedule our first session.
Great. That's awesome. And do you have a certain set of sessions in a package that you work with, or is it kind of catered to, depends on the situation and the client and so on and so forth?
It kind of depends on the situation and the client, although I am putting together a package because it usually requires at least 3 sessions, and I'm not doing this because I want to make a bunch of money, but it's because it takes that long. My big thing with life coaching. I'm sorry, I hit my table. My big thing with life coaching is that I have a marketing background, and so our big thing was always, what's the return on investment?
Right.
And I know you feel this way too. Return on investment is really important, and so each session is about usually about 55 minutes long, 50 minutes long, and then we'll do 10 minutes of wrap up processing and identifying what we feel comfortable with the client doing after the session's over. One of my big beefs was if I would go to see somebody, a therapist or a counselor or whatever, and we'd crack open this really painful stuff for an hour, and I would kind of limp out of the office bleeding and raw. And then what the heck am I supposed to do? Now,
right? Yeah.
In our real lives. And so, it's a combination of tools, and then usually after the discovery call, I will often, and I suspect you do this too, I will send email questions in advance regarding those things that came up during the discovery call, so that the client has some time to kind of think through some things themselves. And then they send those to me in advance so that we kind of are hitting the ground running,
Yeah.
So during that session. And then in between, if a client so chooses, I do email support where they can email questions or, fine-tune tools in between sessions. So they're getting the return on the investment.
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, Julie, I've got your email address streaming across the bottom of the screen. Is that the best way for people to reach out to you, or do you have a website that you want people to?
Well, I haven't done my website yet,
Okay.
as you know. I'll be working on that. So yeah, my email address is the best, or we can also leave my phone number here, and people are welcome to text me, or you can message me on my Facebook page. I am just developing my business page now.
Okay.
Nancy, as you know, I have really developed this organically. I really have done it slowly.
Well, and that's great. I mean, that's the way to go. I am not going to put your phone number down
That's
because
fine.
this will go public. So
yeah, but you can message me on Facebook too.
Yep. So that's great. Okay, well, it's time for rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, buckle up.
Okay, baby.
What's your favorite food?
Mashed potatoes.
And what's your favorite book?
My favorite book? I have to protect the anonymity of the support group that I go to, but it would be the daily reading books that are in conjunction with that.
Okay. And what's your favorite curse word?
Oh, fuck.
That is resoundingly the most favorite out of everyone. I think that, yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. Well, Julie, you hang on for just a few minutes while we close out our broadcast here. I want to thank you so much for being here. It has been a true pleasure. And I'm tickled that we had some people watching us live, and it doesn't look like anybody sent us any messages, so we don't have any questions to answer. But if anybody wants to follow up with either Julie or I on our Facebook pages, we're certainly happy to answer any questions or reach out. And I've put my email address. I'm going to start streaming that across the bottom. And then I also have a Facebook group called Women in Alcohol. And if you'd love to, if you'd like to join us, and Julie's in there with me, and we'd love to have you. It's a nice, safe.
Can I just make one comment?
Yeah.
Because you work with women who are wanting to explore their relationship with alcohol addiction, etc.
Yep.
And one of the things that I just think I really honor in you is that many of those women have been affected themselves.
Yeah.
And so they've grown up with alcoholism in their childhood or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I shouldn't say that, but there's possibly shame, guilt that are involved with that. And so for those women who get to work with you in exploring their relationships, I just really honor how you hold space for them, knowing that it's very possible they came from the same dilemma that they feel like they're causing for others.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting dichotomy. I mean, I grew up in an alcoholic household, and I certainly didn't intend to grow up and follow in my father's footsteps in that regard. And, but I did. And, Uh, so when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade.
Yep.
So,
Or lemon bars. I prefer lemon
yes,
bars.
actually, that would be much better. Yes, lemon
Yes.
bars. I'm going to start using that. Can I have that? Can I steal that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And I think that's probably it from us. So have a good evening. Bye bye.
Thanks all. Night.